Okay, welcome to the program, folks. November the 5th, you're with the Editor-in-Chief live. Evening, everybody. I'm Duncan, Garner. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on TikTok and also on YouTube. What's up, hey? Here's tonight's program. Yes or no? Should we ban Guy Fawkes? Should we ban Guy Fawkes in the backyard? So, you know, your private settings in your backyard. Yes or no? Jump on TikTok, YouTube. We'll have a poll rating there. Personally, I'm going to let a few rockets off tonight before teenagers who aren't overly into it. And if it was banned, would barely bat an eyelid. But we still can, so we will. For some reason, I've dropped about $150 on this thing. And we'll let them rip later on. Why? Well, I'm 50. Why not? I'm 50. I mean, that's the answer, isn't it? Keep your dogs and cats inside. How hard is this? The SPCA will be with me shortly to convince me why it is so bad for animals, so make sure you're listening up to this one. And Professor Nigel Biggar, Global Head of the Free Speech Union, just jumped off a plane and came straight to the Editor-in-Chief first. First thing he did, came in here. Is our freedom of speech under threat? Bloody oath, he says. He'll tell us more shortly, so let's go.
Duncan, Garner, live.
Okay, fireworks, folks. Get over yourselves. How long does this have to go on for? Say the naysayers. Australia banned them in 1972. Did you know that? 1972, 2 years before I was born. Singapore banned them in 1970. 4 years before I was born, and Canada as well in the 1970s. We are an outlier, but it seems no politician wants to be seen as that guy who pulled the rug on fun, you know. If you can bring back smoking like they have, then why would you ditch anything else, I suppose? SPCA's Dr. Alison Vaughan is with us now. Alison, g'day. Welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you on.
Yeah, nice to be here.
What does it do to animals? What do they go through?
Well, we know there's over 4 million companion animals in New Zealand, and about half of those are frightened or very frightened of fireworks. And so that can manifest itself in shaking, shivering, going off their food, running away, getting lost. And unfortunately, it's not just the mental impacts. So we also every year see animals get lost. They may get hit by cars. When it comes to other animals like horses, about 80% of them are scared of fireworks. And over a quarter of horse owners have had their horses injured as a result of fireworks. Right. This is just our companion animals. When it comes to our wildlife, our native birds are nesting this time of year. There's a lot of studies that show that fireworks have quite a big impact on birds.
I just mentioned those countries, those three countries which are familiar to us, but I mean, these guys have had them banned for 50 years. Like 50 years, yeah. You know. I wonder if we lost it, I wouldn't be that upset. But you know, I'm not that into it. But we'll go and do a few. But you know, do you think there's a movement for change?
Yeah, and we think there's been a movement for a very long time in New Zealand, both from the public, from animal welfare organisations, veterinary organisations, local government, New Zealand, have supported it. And it really comes strongly from the public. But what we have been seeing is lacking is central leadership on this issue. Yeah.
Well, have you been able to, well, obviously not, but have you been able to lobby successfully any of these politicians? I mean, have you got any of them to the table?
We definitely got them to the table, and we've been very close a number of times. In the lead up to the election, though, we asked all the major political parties where they stood on this issue and many other issues. And from National and ACT, it didn't seem very promising. But we remain positive, and the more people raise their voices and show that they are concerned about this issue, the more likely the government are to take it seriously.
It's only one night, though, isn't it? The best thing to do is just take your animals inside, isn't it? I mean, you'd hear that argument all the time. It's one night, bring your animals inside. What's the big deal?
Yeah. So I think most people listening will already know that it's not just one night. So they're for sale for just a limited number of days, but there's nothing to stop people letting them off for the coming weeks, months. I had people let them off just the week before they became available for sale. So people have been hanging on for quite a while. And to be clear, SPCA is not trying to be the fun police here. We really understand that people like to get together and let off fireworks. But what we're saying is, instead of doing your own random backyard ones that can disrupt people for a very long time and mean that pet owners can't prepare themselves, we're just asking people instead go to public displays in their neighbourhood, get together with your community and enjoy it together.
Yeah, there's not always those things available, are there? I mean, is there a big one in Auckland tonight? I don't know. Is there? Is there a big one? Do you know?
I don't know. My plans for tonight involve staying in with my animals.
I bet they
do.
Some idiot. Oh, I live in central Auckland. Some bloody idiot this morning at about 3:30 let off a huge number of rockets. It was ridiculous.
I had some in my area at 2 a.m. this morning. So it's not just the animals it's disturbing, but at least we understand what's happening. And for animals, it can be incredibly frightening.
Do you think? Can you put a mark on a calendar and say, look, we should be able to get there by this date? Do you think there's some hope for the animal lovers and those who are against fireworks out there?
Well, frankly, I'm astonished it hasn't happened already in New Zealand. As you've already said, other countries are way ahead of us. There's no reason why we should be lagging behind on this. There's massive public support for it, and there's alternatives.
I will leave it there. You've been nice and clear and loud and clear, and I think you've called it. So thanks very much, Alison. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All the
Take
best.
care.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah, Naku Noa, in kind regards, has said to me, Duncan, pet owners have a whole bloody year to sort them out for a few days of the year. Come on! It's up to the pet owners themselves. I call bull hucky. James says you're a bit blurry, DG. No, because it's not just one night, it's all year round. If it was just one night, it'd be fine. It's not one night, though, is it? I mean, I saw you nodding away. I was like, eh? It's not one night, is it, mate? It's tonight, it's last night, the night before, it's tomorrow night, the next night. It's been New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
and either side.
Yep. The one night argument is, in my opinion, a little bit ridiculous. Because I mean, I live CBD at the moment, and I honestly, I expected to not hear that much. I thought the rules would be way stricter around there, but I've had fireworks going off every night.
Yeah,
for at least the last 9 days.
Yeah.
I reckon once October 25th rolls around, people start to get a little bit trigger happy with their fireworks.
They do, yeah. So the poll, we've got a poll running.
Yes, we do have a poll running. Yeah, it's actually a little bit tighter than I thought it would be.
Really?
At the moment, 62% of people saying no, they shouldn't be banned, but a very solid 38% saying yes, they should be.
See, this is the thing. This is why National won't touch them because it's seen as nanny state.
Yes.
You don't want to go around pushing your weight around on fun. You see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If they're going to bring back smoking, well, you can't hardly... I always use that one. Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Duncan Garner, live.
Righty-ho.
3 questions from the editor-in-chief.
I tell you, got more buttons than a bloody haberdashery. Number 1, staying with animal cruelty, because, that's what we're talking about. Horse racing. And Kiwi Sheila Laxon has trained another horse to victory in the Melbourne Cup. This is sweet for me because my mate, in the formative years at TVNZ yonks ago, when they paid us $6 an hour, was a bloke we named Horse. And by the way, real name Roger Laxon. Roger's mum is Sheila. So I was mates with the Melbourne Cup winner's son. Yeah, I know, hopeless information. So in some way I feel like this is a great victory, as I usually have no idea who's who and what's what and all that sort of thing. So well done, Sheila. Horse or Roger wasn't named Horse because of his mum's career. He earned that on his own. That's all I'll say about that.
Duncan Garner,
okay,
live.
Number two. How's this though? How's this guy? How old is too old to run a marathon? Not 88, is it? Garth Barfoot, as in Barfoot and Thompson, has run the New York Marathon at aged 88. 88! What a national icon, a hero. Tough, gritty, never say never sort of guy. Real character. He would put most 50-year-olds to shame. And maybe 21-year-olds. Okay, number 3, back to Melbourne. If you put a lazy hundy on Knight's Choice to win at $63.50, you would have returned $6,350. If you put $1,000 on it, you would have returned $63,500. But if you put 10 grand on, and some punters do, they do this sort of stuff. 10 grand would have got you $635,000 from the tote. That's incredible, isn't it? More than $500,000 for a 10. But who's got 10 grand to throw on a horse? But that's, I don't know. That's a lot of money.
Duncan Garner, live.
No horse wins paying $63.50. It's an outsider. Right. Professor Nigel Biggar is the chairman of the Free Speech Union UK. And an outspoken professor, outspoken academic in Europe, he says free speech is under attack. And New Zealand is not immune. He is here to give a few speeches in Parliament as well this afternoon. Before then, his first stop was with us. And I spoke to him late this afternoon. What's your message? What are you going to say here in New Zealand?
The message is that we need a society where people are free to challenge orthodoxies because some prevailing orthodoxies are just false, and if they infect public policy, they damage all of us. And therefore, it's really important that people are free to speak up and to challenge dominant reigning points of view. And it's therefore really important that we have a free speech union who can support individuals who are being oppressed by institutions and having their free speech shut down.
I think the Free Speech Union here, that's all I know of it. I know it's a global movement, but here I think they do a wonderful job. They are calling out universities, they're calling out sectors of society, they're calling people out for wanting, in the name of free speech, wanting to block free speech. And there's been a real feeling in New Zealand, certainly in the last few years, that if you're from one particular side of the debate, you don't get a say. It's free speech, but in their terms, the other side's terms.
Absolutely. That's why we're talking about views about transgender self-identification. If we're talking about whether or not New Zealand and are systemically racist, whether we're talking about whether colonial history was all bad and whether white people are guilty. All these things are enormously important for our public policy and our self-understanding and for racial harmony, and for the safety of women. And it's really important we get things right. So it's extremely important that particular professional groups allow dissent in their ranks, because that's the only way in which we get to learn and correct the bad stuff.
That's right. It's a pretty narrow window, isn't it, if you're only in an echo chamber of yourself and others of like minds. Have you had much of a feel for New Zealand's freedom of speech in the last 10 years?
No, to be frank, I haven't. But my sense is the issue of free speech in New Zealand is taken much more seriously than it is currently in Australia. In Britain, it's a front page, or at least it's a third page issue mostly, because parts of the centre-right press, the Times of London, the Telegraph, and of course the Daily Mail further to the right, they take these issues seriously. The left, I'm afraid to say, the Guardian newspaper, which is on the left in Britain, is studiously evades the topic. He doesn't think it's a problem. He thinks it's a right-wing conservative confection, but it's not, because the people whose views are shut down are not just people who vote on the right. I mean they include feminists who probably vote Green, I don't know, possibly even vote Labour, like Kathleen Stock, a lesbian, gender-critical feminist philosopher at the University of Sussex. If you've ever heard her, and you can see her on YouTube, she is relentlessly reasonable, a very reasonable person, but she has gender-critical views, and she was effectively harassed out of her job and her career at the University of Sussex about 2 or 3 years ago, by a campaign run by students, aided and abetted by some academic colleagues, and permitted by university authorities. So this is not the champions of free speech are not just on the conservative side, they're also on the left.
Yeah, and you've seen that here with universities as well. There's a real movement to have one particular discourse, and to shut out voices that may not agree with the argument of the sitting professors or the sitting academics, and so someone's got an opposing view and they are shut out and shut down. Now this is academia. It's the last place you want that.
Yeah, and Duncan, one thing we need to do is to sit back for a moment and restore the common sense distinction between hate on the one hand and dissent and criticism on the other. Because what's happening at the moment is that every time someone voices dissent or criticism of the view that you can simply change your gender by announcing that's what you feel you are, and it doesn't matter what age you are. Young kids can do this, and young kids in Britain have had access to irreversible chemicals to change their bodies. They get to do that, and if anyone criticizes or dissents, they're accused of being hateful. They're accused of hate crime. Same if you challenge the notion that New Zealand or Britain is systemically racist. You're a racist, and you're expressing hate. But look, until 10 years ago, we all knew perfectly well that I can dissent from you, Duncan. I can criticize you, Duncan. It doesn't mean I hate you. It just means I disagree with you. So this confusion of hatred and criticism or dissidence, this has become widespread, and I've never heard a journalist challenge it.
Well, I think it's really clear. I mean, I think it's quite obvious what insightful, hateful speech is, spiteful and hateful, and if you go to that next stage where you're inciting of violence or whatever, that's very different to me criticising or having an opinion on one particular philosophy or political philosophy. It's completely different.
Of course it is. Now, I guess that the logic goes that if you say something that really, really upsets or challenges the identity of a trans person, then you are guilty of denying their existence. I mean, that's what they say. You criticize my identity and you deny my existence. Absolute nonsense. I'm not threatening your right to live. I just don't believe you are what you say you are. And it may upset you because you're a fragile personality, in which case, frankly, you need therapeutic help, because all manner of people find their identities under challenge. I'm a religious believer. There are people around me, atheists, who think that my beliefs are absolute nonsense. If I was of a fragile personality, I could despair of life and be driven to attempt suicide. Is there anyone around me proposing that the expression of atheism be banned so that I won't be disturbed? No. And so it has to be with people on the extreme progressive left.
So we're different because I'm agnostic. I thought I was a more atheist, but I think as I get older, I'm more agnostic. But I'm somewhere. So we're different. We're different, but we can express the views, right?
Yeah, we can. And I might disturb you. You might disturb me. But in a liberal society, we've got to suffer disturbance. Otherwise, we never get to test each other's ideas, and therefore bad ideas come to reign.
Posey Parker came here and wanted to hold a rally in the domain up the road here from where I am, and she was aggressively attacked, shouted down, brutally at times. It was ugly. I don't know if you've heard of it or seen of the footage or whatever. But
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, she didn't get her say. She wanted to come here and go into bat for women. What she should have been able to do, and the fact that we didn't give her the platform, it's an embarrassment for New Zealand.
Yes, and one of the problems, Duncan, is the way in which institutions behave, even the police. Often, certainly in Britain, maybe here too, the police behave as if their job is simply to minimise trouble. So if you have noisy protesters who get very excited about a single person appearing on stage or coming down the street who holds views they don't like, then the police tend to blame the person coming down the street, the person on stage. Whereas what they should do is turn around to the protesters and say, you have a legal right to protest. You don't have a right to intimidate. You don't have a right to stop other people talking. You've told us your views. That's fine. Shut up. Let's hear the person speak.
There was a person arrested recently in New Zealand. I read this a couple of nights ago. Arrested, put in the cells for protesting, and then released, and they've actually apologised. Police have formally apologised to this person.
Well, that's great. That's really great.
All they were doing was protesting. And this is when the police cross the line. See, they lose all sight. They lose their equilibrium as well, you see.
Yeah, they do. I do understand. Police have a hard job sometimes keeping control of crowds of people who are excited. But they also have a job to uphold freedom of speech. And protesters, they have a right to protest. They also have a duty to restrain themselves. They don't have a right to shout other people off the platform, because if that's the case, Duncan, the people who shout loudest rule. We can't have that.
No, but they do. That's the problem. The post-COVID, we've seen in New Zealand a real increase in people who don't trust the media any longer. So there's been all sorts of things set up as a result. There's radio stations, independent radio stations have been set up by broadcasters who feel cancelled and so forth. There's the rise and rise of the podcast, which is also rise and rise of AI and rise of digital, the power of digital and so forth. So there's not just a protest, because we've seen the world go through all sorts of disruption at the moment anyway. The media generally, have they lost people's faith and people's trust?
Well, Duncan, I can't speak for New Zealand. I've only been here 12 hours, and it would be presumptuous of me to comment on something I don't really know about. But talking about Britain, we do have a range of media. In the press, we do have left and right. We have the Guardian on the left, the major broadsheet newspaper, and then the Times in the centre and the Telegraph on the right, and others. So in the print press, we have political diversity. The BBC, which has a statutory duty really to serve the whole public and to be even-handed in the sense of giving equal voice to opposing opinions, so that citizens can hear both sides of the debate and make their own minds up. I'm afraid the BBC is failing. It too often instinctively gives a platform to those on the centre left or the left, and other people are shut out. Now, the reason given for this is that the BBC tends to comprise people all of the same social class. They've all been to the same universities. They tend to think the same things, and therefore they're victims of groupthink. This has been pointed out to them repeatedly with little effect, but it's really it's a major failure in an institution that is supposed to provide a kind of liberal forum for discussion, that they should do this, and it does lead to people leaving them and going off to find other outlets that are more liberal.
You're if you stand up here in New Zealand, obviously we had the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840 that was signed with the with the British who came here, and the New Zealand Māori signed that contract. What you've written about colonisation, obviously quite widely. If you stand up here and say that, because the prevailing thought here is that Māori were hard done by, they got land stolen, they lost many of their people through all sorts of things that the English brought here, including guns, and it's been a terrible, terrible devastation for the Māori people.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that's the prevailing. Now, if you go against that here and say that, no, hang on, the English brought some very good things here for Māori, you would get shouted down. You get a lot of pushback.
Well, you shouldn't be shouted down because it's the truth. I mean, the history of New Zealand, as I know it, is like most other places. It's kind of messy. I mean, as I understand it, yes, the British, the Crown came here, but the Crown came here at the request of quite a number of Maori chieftains who wanted protection against sealers and other Europeans who were pitching up on their shores. So it wasn't simply a matter of British invasion. There was an invitation. And actually the British government was quite reluctant to do it because intervention in far parts of the world, even way back in the 1840s, cost a lot of money. And the British Treasury, then as now, didn't want to spend money. So there was that. Yes, in the course of time, there was disagreements as to what the Treaty of Waitangi meant, what it required, and there was disputes about that. It led to warfare, particularly over land. And yes, it may well be that land was taken from some Maori that shouldn't have been.
It's more than may well be. It's been established in fact that there's been an apatu, which is a confiscation of land. So it's been well and truly recognised. And I might say we have paid a lot of money out to say sorry.
Fine, okay. I'm not denying that. So that's quite right. On the other hand, what did the British do for the Maori? Well, they introduced Christianity, which helped them wean them off the habit of headhunting and cannibalism. It also brought an end to the dreadful musket wars. If you talk about damage to the Maori people, the musket wars of the 1820s and 30s were most devastating. Yes, that was because of European firearms, but it wasn't Europeans who were pulling the trigger. It was Maori. It was the Maori who bought them. And the other devastating thing was often disease brought to these shores. It wasn't brought deliberately any more, I think, than China deliberately spread COVID around the world. Yeah. It was inadvertent.
Some of the early settlers, some of the early English British settlers, talk about Māori in a very dishevelled state, and all sorts of chaos and haywire and lack of coordination and village life. It was dirty and messy, and so there's all sorts of takes on this. It's not often a take that you hear because it's always couched in other ways. Here we're 50 years through a process now of settling grievances. We're still going 50 years on. We're still in it. Yes. And we'll have to end at some stage. But I just wonder, did Māori receive lots of benefits from the English that we don't talk about?
Again, I'm too distant from your country to talk with authority here. But let's think about this. New Zealand, together with Australia, Britain, Canada, and the US, are among the most liberal countries on earth right now, and also among the most prosperous, but among the most liberal. That's not an accident, because the British did introduce institutions of a free press, of an independent judiciary, of parliamentary accountability, and yes, these institutions took time to develop and became increasingly more liberal. But now we have institutions that hold governments to account. We have institutions that are willing to think about what happened 100 years ago and to try and rectify it in ways that Russia, China, Iran, North Korea to this day do not have. So that is owed to the liberal English political tradition. And it's made a difference to life in New Zealand. The other thing I'd say is, Duncan, according to the World Values Survey 2023, countries in the British Empire, they don't mention New Zealand, I'm afraid to say, but they do mention Canada, Australia, and Britain, are among the least racist countries on earth right now, in contrast to Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea.
What would countries have looked like without colonisation? So, for instance, New Zealand and its prevailing population, what would it have been like?
Well, this is a counterfactual. The fact of the matter is that the Western world was coming to the shores of New Zealand and Australia one way or another. It was coming. But what would it look like? Well, I don't know. Maybe we'd have an exclusively ethnic Maori New Zealand, and you can think of perhaps some of the less attractive customs of the Maori that would still prevail. But no culture, Duncan, has the right to be immune from change. And it's been a fact of human life forever that cultures encounter one another, have to adapt, and to some extent, the weaker culture adapts to the dominant culture. It doesn't mean the weaker culture loses everything in itself, but it has to adapt and change.
To people who feel like they can't speak out, to people who feel like their views are crushed or not heard, what's your advice to them? What should they do?
Well, Duncan, I got in trouble toward the end of my career. I was senior and I was relatively difficult to harm, and the harm done me wasn't terrible. Some people are much more vulnerable, young people in institutions who could get fired or disciplined. So it is difficult, but I would urge, first of all, it's really important that those people who feel they can speak out and care enough to do so, because otherwise, the majority of people who are not captive to these ultra progressive ideas, they look around themselves, no one else is protesting, no one else is dissenting, and they think, I must be the only one, I'm in a minority. They're not. They're actually the majority. So people do need to speak out when they feel they can. And the fact there's now a very active, very vigorous free speech union in New Zealand means that if individuals find themselves being unfairly oppressed or persecuted by their institutions, they can appeal to the FSU. And the FSU, in alliance with various media, will publicise their case, put their institutions on the spot, and embarrass them. So individuals in New Zealand are no longer alone if they want to dissent. So take courage, speak up, and if you're in trouble, call the FSU.
Yeah. It's 0800. I'll get the number later. Hey, so I appreciate your time. I know you're busy and you're off to other events and everything, but thank you for making time for us. And kia kaha free speech. I'm right into it.
Thanks, Duncan. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, all the very best. Take care.
Duncan Garner, live.
Okay, so good luck for the rest of your trip and your tour, Nigel. Now, Isaac. Come in, Isaac.
Hello.
So, I'm going to have a shot at you shortly, but our poll.
Yes, our fireworks poll.
Fireworks ban, yes or no? How are we looking?
It is currently looking pretty tight, in fact.
Really? Wow.
52% is on top. What do you think it is?
52% say don't ban it.
Yes. So 52%
say
don't.
Eh?
52% say don't ban it, and 48% obviously saying yes, they should be banned.
That's tight, eh?
Yeah, very tight. I feel like lots of the people that are saying yes, we should ban it I don't want to. 50-50 now.
50-50.
Just changed.
Is this a live feed?
This is a live poll.
This is a live poll, folks.
So very, very close. I think some people are saying it on the TikTok as well, which you're live on at the moment. The idea of banning residential use, like it's okay in like public displays, like for example, I don't know, Christmas in the park down in Canterbury have a big fireworks
barge
thing.
And blow up the harbour.
Yeah, exactly. They do that in Kaiteri every New Year. It's great.
Why don't you do it tonight in Auckland?
Yeah, like public displays is great, but residential potentially. I personally think it should be gone. I think it's but just because people just do it too much and it's dangerous.
How old are you?
21.
You're a disgrace.
Yeah, well, I do also enjoy my sleep, Duncan, and so.
We're going to talk after this.
Okay.
No, fair enough, mate. Hey, they are pointless, aren't they? Yes. I mean, Australia's been banned. They've been there for 50 years.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Well, hey, if you work on here, you learn something every day.
Oh, yeah. Every 2 or 3 days.
Thank me later,
Let's go with that.
Duncan Garner, live.
I just want to say to you, Isaac, this is not about you, but maybe it's about your friends. I'm not sure if it includes Forrester. Not Lockie, but Forrester probably. But watch out, Gen Z. The most annoying workers you can hire are Gen Z. This is according to recruiters. They're not afraid to tell you what they think they're worth. So they'll tell you they want 100K because it's expensive out there, so we think we should get 100K. They say that in their application. They've worked it out, and they're not afraid to ask for a Bitcoin well above their station. They've got no experience, but they say, I want 100K, thanks. But I'm also keen to work from home, they put in their applications. And they're still demanding to work from home when no one else is doing this anymore. Recruiters say they are putting it down in their application. They want 100K. I want to work from home. Hey, honey, can I just pass a message on? Those excuses are over. Get over yourself. You're not that much of a big deal, Gen Z. And the bosses have had enough. And they're saying to recruiters, leave them hanging. It's a no. So they're not even getting through the door now. So if you're a Gen Z, just be careful about pushing it too far. Arrogance is what the recruiters in Australia are calling you. Just arrogant, no record of work achievement, and they're making these demands in their application. Recruiters are calling out Gen Z. They're saying employers are over you. You're seen as too demanding, too precious, and they want the job on their terms, with special allowances for any anxiety they feel. The recruiters say anxiety is part of life. Anxiety is part of what we experience in every day. You have a job interview lined up, you're going to be anxious. So you can't take the day off because that's your job interview. It's part and parcel of life. You get nervous before an event. It's entirely normal. You don't need a diagnosis and a label for everything. It's called la la land. Try working try working a full day. A lot of Gen Z don't want to work full days. We worked our arse off. We only spoke when spoken to because you worked to a standstill for $10 an hour. That was the reality. Gen Z, you're going to wake up.
Duncan Garner, live.
Or you won't be employed. That's what they're saying. Is that too harsh? Are you a Gen Z?
Yes, I am a Gen Z.
You feel you're not offended by that?
No.
So you're the exact opposite, mate.
Oh, thank you very much. I think that there is a lot of people in my generation that can
precious.
be.
Do you agree?
Oh,
is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's
true, isn't it?
Yeah, and like
why though?
I don't know. I think mental health is a massive focus of my generation, which is a good thing. It is a very, very good thing. Do not get me wrong. But
do you think
I
it's
feel
used
like
a bit too much?
Yes, there are some times where it potentially gets used a little bit too much. And again, I am all for taking a sick day, taking a day off for a little bit of stress. There's nothing wrong with that.
You ring me in advance, though, because we'll find
yeah,
some cover
exactly.
for you.
Or if it's like if you're doing it, twice a week, which I have had some experience with back in my uni days.
Do you think your mates will say to you after this, "Hey, mate, look after our generation"?
Nah, well, at least I know
you're a leader amongst your generation.
Oh, thank you. But I know there's a lot of people that agree with me, Lockie included.
See, Lockie, I don't know if he's marked up, but Lockie, you'd agree with Isaac?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you are quite a hard bastard, though, when it comes to sort of, there's no excuses, Lockie, There's no excuses, Lockie.
No, exactly. It's an industry where you can't have excuses, Duncan.
Imagine Lockie,
you know that better than anyone.
Again, I'm a sick. Get into you then.
Yeah.
Take a concrete pill. I mean,
don't come Monday then if you're doing that.
Yeah.
This guy's on board now. Okay.
Also, one more thing from me. Oh, it's just changed. Yes, they should ban fireworks. Did pull ahead with 52%, but now it's even again at 50-50.
50-50.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'd like to be nice and decisive for you, but at 50-50 I can't be. Sorry, but it shows that there's real heat in it. Yeah. Okay, that's us. This will be available as a podcast on Rover shortly, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for your feedback and support. I'm Duncan at Rover.nz to my team, the full-time Isaac and part-time Forrester, and all the time Lockie. Appreciate it, guys. We'll do it again tomorrow. Remember, life is no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth, so get out there and do your fireworks and all that sort of thing. Have a great night and take care. Don't do anything silly. Okay?
That was Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief Live. Missed something on the live stream? Text Duncan to 3598 to listen back on the podcast. Want to get in touch? Call 0800 863 293.